what do you think about the guy running for New York mayor? Forgetting his name here.
Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah.
Yeah, we supported him. We endorsed him.
No way.
Yeah, we endorsed
Is
him.
he good?
We're so proud of him.
Yeah.
Of course, he's good. I mean, he is just the energy that he brings, the fresh perspective that he brings, in the fact that he is unapologetically Muslim. I'll tell you this: regardless of whether he wins or not, he's won. And the reason why he's won is because he has shown New Yorkers, he has shown the average American what it means to be a Muslim. And he has made being a Muslim his identity as part of
You
his
sure
identity
about
when he
that?
runs.
I think it's more like the pro-Pals. Actually, no, you're right. He has been very vocal about being Muslim,
But
but he
also
did.
pro-Palestinian.
Yeah, and but also pro-Palestinian. But he did just post a Happy Pride Month today. I think today's what's today, man? June 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important for people to know we're talking on June 3rd because some events are going to be changing from then, especially Greta Thunberg. We'll see, inshallah, may Allah give
Inshallah.
her
Inshallah.
victory, them and everyone on that boat. But yeah, I mean, I guess he can't help that with being in New York, huh? He has to drop that
Well,
Pride Month.
I think that at a personal level, it's very easy for me to say, yes, I agree with you, of course, because I have to acknowledge our religion and the rules around our religion and what our religion says about the LGBT issue, right? But what I also think is equally as important is that when someone decides to represent more than himself or herself, they then have the amana for everyone in their district and everyone in their city. So when we're seeing um, Muslim candidates and Muslim elected officials uh, ensuring that everyone that they are responsible for, that they have the amana for, um, when we're seeing them ensure that they also feel safe, I think that it's much different than what their opinion may be at a personal level. Now, I can't speak to their personal opinions, I'm speaking more generally.
Right.
But I do believe that there should be grace that is given when there are different responsibilities and different amana that is given towards each one of those people who are elected, right? The amana that I have is much different than the amana that he may have, which may be different than the amana that an imam or someone may have.
Yeah. I think there's wisdom in this stuff too. When people are in leadership positions, this isn't an activist position,
Right.
you know? This isn't oh, okay, now you have to say everything that we necessarily believe. Like you're saying, that there's a wisdom. You take people on slowly. So, you can't just come in guns blazing as a
Yeah.
Muslim running for New York City
Yeah.
candidate and be like, yeah, man, screw LGBT. You're like, all right, you're going to lose probably,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit of wisdom. Maybe you can, not say anything or I don't know. But yeah, I definitely, I struggle with that.
Yeah, I mean the leniency towards Muslim politicians, yeah, I do believe that they should always be given grace. I think that they should be held accountable to the responsibilities and that they signed up for. They didn't sign up to be imams. They didn't sign up to be shuyukh. They didn't sign up to teach our children at school. Now, of course, whether they like it or not, our children are looking up to them, hoping that they would one day potentially be them. And I think there's an amana that's there. But I do believe that it's important for us to understand that with the positions that they have been elected and or appointed to, comes the responsibility to ensure that the people that they serve are all safe.
Yeah, they
That,
they have more than the Muslims to serve, and they're not even in a Muslim
of
country
course,
where they're leading. But it's also we just need to be patient as Muslim community in America. We need to be realistic. We need to understand where we are and our
mhm.
position in the
Yeah,
political
agreed,
sphere,
agreed.
and take it step by step. Be
Yeah,
wise. Like going against Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, in my personal opinion, isn't wise because you just aren't being realistic as to where they are. And Sami Hamdi said something beautiful. We're upset at what we're seeing in the mirror. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib are an outcome of us. They're
mhm.
not an outcome of, Norway's Muslim
Of all of
community,
us
of the American Muslim
in the U.S.
community.
Yeah,
And one thing that I've noticed, and you don't have to comment on this, is that Muslim women are the ones that are very politically active, that are very active in our communities in every single way. So it isn't a surprise that the only Muslim Congress people there are mainly women, Muslim women, because it's an outcome of who's actually been active in our
Mhm.
communities in the first
Mhm.
place. But alhamdulillah, our men are catching up with that. But
I mean,
yeah, kinda. We're trying to motivate them a little bit, Muhammad. No, you don't have to comment on that. Are they doing anything? I don't think
where they
so.
at? We're on podcasts.
But yeah, we're on podcast. Just talking about
We're
it,
on
you know?
podcast. That's what we're on.
This is what men have come to,
Yeah,
right? Women are
we're
out
on
there doing
podcast.
the
We
work
can't be outside.
in government.
No, no,
We're
no.
just
It's too hot.
gossiping about
It's
it.
too hot.
You hear what Rashida did?
You hear about that? She crazy.
She crazy.
She crazy.
Brother Mohamed Gula, political strategist, national organizing director at Emgage, and the co-founder of Virginia Muslim Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining the Ansari podcast, brother.
Thank
It's
you
a
for
pleasure to
having me.
have you.
Thank you for having me.
I heard you guys. You told me that you guys got pushback for endorsing Kamala.
Of course, yeah. And it's understandable that we did.
Yeah.
It's we knew when we made the decision that it was not going to be a popular decision. We knew that there was a possibility that we would get canceled. We knew that when we made the decision. But I had a mentor whose advice I was seeking. I asked him. I said, "What do you feel like we should do?" And he asked me. He said, "Muhammad, what is your job? Like, what is your role in our community?" And I told him. I said, "Well, technically, I am a political strategist, and I give advice to what would be the best political decision for our community." And he said, "Okay, what would you do?" And I told him my honest advice would be to go with Harris.
Really? So why is that?
It is because that the conditions that we need to advance Muslim policy and overall the movement, even for Palestine, we only saw that pathway through the Democratic Party. It wasn't about Harris herself. It was about the reality that we did not have the Supreme Court. It was about the reality that we did not have the House of Representatives. In that moment, we did have the Senate, but we knew that we would lose it based
See,
on the
but when you
numbers.
say something like that, because I know you're saying we as Democratic Party, that sounds like you guys are biased towards the Democratic Party.
No, I was
Because you're saying
saying
we.
we as Emgage and the Muslim institution that uses that works with the Democratic Party at this moment because of the current political environment. So when I say we, I'm not saying specifically the Democratic Party, but rather the Democratic Party is the vehicle of which we pass laws. If there was an opportunity for me to use a third party, I would have used it.
Well, what about like Thomas Massey, who's way better than any Democrat
Thomas
or
Massey's one vote.
right? But he's a vehicle for you to pass policy, right?
No,
Why is
the
it?
only policy that we agree on is actually Gaza and Israel. And even with that, his reasoning for being anti Israel is actually not even the reason for us being pro-Palestinian. His reasoning is that he is an America First uh, uh, elected official and representative, whereas our reason is because we believe in Palestinian human rights and
Right.
Palestinian
But
civil
his
rights.
political framing is better for the Gaza issue in America than yours is, right? That America First, the America First movement, I think is the best movement in America for the Gaza situation alongside the Palestinian movement.
Expand on that.
I think that the America First movement's what got us into the door
Mm-hmm.
with the narrative in the right. The left was Gaza freedom.
Mm-hmm.
On the right, it was America First. Because when we started telling Republicans, and when Tucker Carlson came out, and
Mm-hmm.
when Joe Rogan and Theo Von came out, and they were all like, why are we giving billions of dollars to Ukraine and
Mm-hmm.
Israel when we could be spending it on our people, and look at the streets of LA, and
Mm-hmm.
Austin is the last great city and all of that. That helped open the door for Gaza a lot. So the America First movement is actually very helpful for the Palestinian.
It's helpful. I can't say that it's the best option.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the reason why I can't say that is because it's not. I can't say that the best option for me is a vehicle that doesn't care about me. You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle that helps me, but it's not a vehicle that cares about me.
But we would love America to be America first as Muslims,
Yeah.
right? Just leave the Middle East alone, right? Just leave us
I
alone.
mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
think I can't disagree with that because then I can't agree or disagree because it then becomes a discussion of whether or not we're anti or pro American imperialism,
Right.
right? And
But
of
let me
course, I'm
tell you,
going to say, yeah, I would love for everyone to build their own country and to have their own autonomy and to have their own freedom. Yeah, of course, I'd get behind that. But the discussion of American imperialism is a different discussion, I think, when we're discussing like the freedom of people.
no, because American imperialism is a big reason why Gaza is in the situation that it is.
Agree,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. I will
But I
tell you
would
that.
love for my congressperson to love Palestine, to
Yeah,
love those that are in Gaza, to to care about human rights
but that's step by
at its
step, right?
core.
We got to get to that, like we were saying earlier.
I don't
We
think so. I
really,
don't if I'm investing in my champion, it will be the person who cares about human rights.
yeah. Now I know you and Sami Hamdi are friends, and you speak. We met each other actually, all three of us at IGNA.
Yeah.
His argument to you would be that Trump was the best option because it would punish the Democrats for allowing genocide. What would your response be to that? Didn't it punish the Democrats?
No.
You don't think the Democrats looked back at this loss and go, that Gaza was a huge reason, Michigan, Pennsylvania?
Nope. I don't. It in the Democratic debrief, Gaza was not in the top issues as to why they lost the election.
What? What was their top issues then?
Economics,
But Gaza
safety.
was one of the biggest reasons they lost.
Again, the question was the question was, do they believe that Gaza was a top issue? They don't believe that. That wasn't even in the conversation. Now they could be lying to themselves. They could say
What makes you say that though? Were you a part of the conversation? Like, how do you know that?
because I spoke to them.
Right.
So like to be able to speak to congressional members again, like I am a registered lobbyist in but more specifically in Virginia. So when we're having conversations with any candidate or any elected official, we're discussing with them what policies they care most about, but also what policies they hear often. And we're trying to ensure that they care about our policies.
Yeah.
So when we're having conversations with members of the Democratic Party and they're telling me that, hey, we lost this election because they really cared about the economy and because of uh, there was no access to affordable housing or affordable health care, and they didn't know they couldn't take their kids to an affordable school and they can't pay for eggs. And they discuss this issue of just not being able to have a good quality of life post COVID, and they are apathetic and angry at the entire situation. And then when you ask them about Gaza, they'll either say they don't know anything about it or they'll say that's terrible of what's happening, right? Like the average American, of course, doesn't agree with what's happening, nor do they like what's happening. But when you're asking the Democratic Party, hey, is this the reason why you lost? Their answer is going to be no,
What are the things that you disagree with what Sami Hamdi has said for the last year or so?
nothing.
Come on, man. I talked to you in private. You have things you disagree with him on.
Look, Sami Hamdi makes a lot of great points, like a lot, and he has a way of sharing his opinion that really like touches your soul. The disagreement that I had of his video, and this was right before the election, but he also, to be fair to him, he also said that he is used to UK politics where it's punishing. Okay, so I'm gonna punish you, and I'm gonna punish you, and I'm gonna punish you. His approach was all about punishment. But power isn't just built that way. Power isn't just about accountability. Power is actually also about the relationships that you build. Accountability is also very important. There has to be some sort of accountability. But the relationship that you build actually will get you further than accountability will. So I've built multiple relationships with multiple elected officials, or even multiple advocates and multiple activists and multiple people in this space. And all of the relationships that I had built have gotten me further than me running someone against a candidate just to hold them accountable.
Yeah, I think both work though, right?
They
If
do.
you do both, right?
You can, but I'm more so saying that it can't just always be punish.
Yeah,
That's where I disagreed.
yeah.
Where a lot
And I don't
of,
think that's what he's trying to say. I think he's saying that all the power that we have right now in the Muslim American community, the only power we have is to punish. We don't have the power to make someone succeed yet. I
but
think
that's where I
that's.
disagree.
You think we have the power to make someone succeed now?
Absolutely.
Like even in
Absolutely.
2024 election?
Absolutely.
Okay.
At the municipal level, at the state level, and even at the congressional level.
Really? Okay.
100%.
Can you tell me how?
Yeah, Congressional District 11 in Virginia, we have 54,000 registered Muslims. Your win number is going to be less than 20,000. Muslims can go and put a Muslim in there. In our election, it was just announced, it's going to be late June. That's how you get another congressional member. Last year, in 2024, we had in Congressional District 10 in Virginia as well. The primary election, the person who won had 15,000, less than 20,000. Again, we had over 45,000 registered Muslims. There's so many examples that of us having the number of registered Muslims in those congressional districts, but because we were not organized enough, because we did not have the resources to turn people out, we missed that opportunity of being able to invest in those races
I
and to
see.
turn people out. And same thing with school board members, with city council members, with state delegates. You know, there was my first race that I was a part of in Virginia was a special election for a state representative position or a state delegate position. Do you know what he won with?
Hmm.
700 votes. That was the total vote count. That was
Total
his
vote.
win number because it was a special election. Because it was a special election, he was the vote getter and he only had 700 votes.
Wow. Yeah.
If you look at Sam Rasool, who is the longest serving delegate in Virginia, Muslim delegate in Virginia, he won his primary election in 2014. He only won by 44 votes. Medina Wilson Anton, when she first ran in 2020, she only won by 46 votes. Rashida Tlaib, our beautiful sister, who won in 2018. Most people don't know that in the same election, she lost her special election and won the regular piece.
Mm.
And I think the vote difference was like 900 votes. So when people talk to me about whether or not we can like make any sort of change or elect anyone, my answer will always be yes. Always. There's so many opportunities to win elections. But honestly, it's not even just that. There are opportunities for us to defeat the IRA definitions that are being introduced in many of our state legislators, where it's a definition of anti Semitism, and they're looking to define criticism of Israel as being anti Semitic. There's ways for us to organize around that and defeat those
How?
by getting state representatives not to support it and by discussing and having relationships and building relationships with them to make sure that they vote against it.
Okay. Yeah.
There's so many opportunities to create change in your communities. You know, people who do reach out to you or people who are watching, they can of course reach out to our organization, Emgage, and there are multiple opportunities of ways that we can build power, but also help your community build power. We would happily come out to any community and discuss ways that they can build power locally or even at the state level.
Interesting. I like what you're saying because from what you're saying, it sounds like we're a lot like the Green Party right now, where we come out every 4 years. We don't do anything locally, and we don't end up having an impact. And we need to be more 24/7 around the clock.
It has to be a part of our culture.
At the Ansari podcast, one of our closest partnerships is Muslim professionals. That's because they're a free community connecting thousands of Muslims across the United States, working at places like Google, Apple, and Spotify. Their vision is to connect the Muslim world, whether that's help finding a new job, exchanging business ideas, forming partnerships, or just making new friends. Sign up at muslimprofessionals.us for free. Let's grow together, win together. I've teamed up with Pomeroy, a full-service marketing agency founded by a Muslim businessman with over 20 years of experience. Whether you're building your business, improving your brand, or running a nonprofit, Pomeroy will help you improve your revenue, increase your return on investment. Visit pomeroy.com/Ansari and get a free consultation today, or just mention the podcast and you'll get a free consultation. So how do you get Muslims to vote? Because even me, man, like, it's so far away. You know,
What's far away?
voting poll and all that. Like, if I could do it on my phone, I'd do it.
No, that's what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, like my response to you would be, I'll be honest with you, like I would never say this, but even just to yourself, like the way that I see it is that there's so many people who are so passionate about the Gaza issue, right? And they're so passionate about defeating AIPAC. Is the poll really that far away? If you knew that there was a Muslim running and you knew that we would have another congressional member who's a Muslim, are we that consumed by our daily lives that we would not want that change?
Yeah.
So is it that we
But
just don't want it bad enough?
no, I think it's we're creatures of habit and culture,
Mm.
and we come from cultures that don't vote.
We do. And where do you think that comes from?
The fact that we don't have countries that are democratic.
Do you
know?
feel like that's what it is?
Yeah, I think we're just not. I mean, my parents vote and I vote, but I vote because my parents vote.
Mm.
So I was like raised on voting. They would take me
Yeah.
with them as they voted.
And you raise an important point. This is a conversation I had with my dad. My dad, we actually just recently had this conversation where um, I talked to him about why his relationship with civic engagement was so negative.
It's negative.
It's so negative.
You're like trying to help the Muslim
Yeah,
community.
I'm
It's
like,
ugh.
yo, why is your relationship with civic engagement so negative? And he told me, he was like, Muhammad, I define civic engagement different than how you define civic engagement. I define civic engagement through humanitarian causes. I define civic engagement through interfaith work. I define civic engagement through helping the poor and the needy and others. But I also, my relationship with civic engagement was based off of where the country that I came from, and he's from Libya.
Mhm.
So his relationship to civic engagement was based off of a dictatorial
Yeah.
society. And our community, for those who come from an immigrant background, do have a very complex relationship with civic engagement. So my job day in and day out is to engage with our community who have that complex relationship with civic engagement. And it's not just the immigrant community, it's also the African American Muslim community whose relationship with civic engagement is much further down, but their relationship with government, their relationship with and the history when it comes down to civic engagement is also much different.
Right. I think it's gonna take time. I think we're
Yeah,
simmering. We're
we are.
because this is an issue that comes from every single direction of power, whether
Yeah,
entertainment, whether infrastructure, whether politics, whether money, whether tech,
absolutely.
and we're coming in
We
from
are.
all of these directions. We just gotta
We
be
are.
patient. We gotta keep going. We can't give up. I think it's happening. Um, the only difference that I find, I don't believe those in power are smarter than any of us. I think that the only pieces of knowledge they have more than us is what the hell's going on,
The levers.
what they're talking
It's
about.
the levers.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the first things that I learned coming into Washington, D.C. I used to think that um, change was unattainable. One of the biggest things that I experience every single day engaging with our community is that there's this abnormally large amount of voter apathy and political efficacy, where there's this belief that regardless of what we do, no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to change the condition of any one of our policies. It's not even just Gaza, it's anything. That's that's something that I hear often, like daily. So there is this loss of hope. But the first thing that I experienced coming into DC was that I could walk into my congressional person's office and have a meeting on the spot and have conversations on the spot on the policies that I care about most. And I can walk right out and I can come the next day and I can have that same conversation with somebody different, with multiple congressional members. And if I was to go through my phone, I could point to you the number of congressional members that I have on my phone, that I've had conversations with, that I've discussed things with, that I've explained, hey, this is where we're at, versus this is not where we're at. I need you to come to the masjid. I need
So
you to
what was
speak to
that
our
word that you
congregation.
said? You said leverage?
I said power levers.
Levers.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the power levers. They know which levers to use and which ones not to use. They know the system.
What do you mean by that, power levers?
The power levers, like, for example, if I want to be able to, for example, I'll use the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. I knew that to learn about what the Israeli Advisory Board is, or if we wanted to stay local, um, most people don't know that many of their local municipalities invest in Israeli bonds,
What's a municipality?
like a town, a city,
Ah, I see.
or even just a locality, where there's some cities like the city of Atlanta that invests millions in Israeli bonds.
Which backs Israeli economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their pensions and everything is in Israeli bonds. New York City. Most people don't know that there are so many police departments, maybe even in your community, that have a agreement with the IDF to train their police officers. Most people don't know that, and you can actually look that up.
Hmm.
They'll tell you. Actually, a story that I had was that there was a mayor that was running for the city of Pittsburgh, and one of the first conversations that I had with him was whether or not he would get rid of the training program with the IDF if he was to get elected. And I told him, I said, look, we're willing to endorse you, we're willing to support you, we're willing to put money behind you if you're willing to drop the training and if you're willing to have or hire some sort of Muslim liaison. It was an agreement. He said, yeah. It was a done deal. He got rid of the training.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
Like there's so many different examples where we see that. And so when we're looking at like coming into this space and really being educated around what do I need to invest in to change this policy, there's a strategy for all of it. It's just really a matter of us being willing to invest in it and us being willing to show up.
How does one understand political strategy without having to read a book or an article or anything like that? How does someone become more strategically minded and understand the nuances of power in politics? Or is there a way for you to sum it up or a saying that you live by?
You have to look at politics as part of your life because it already is. And I'll actually share this story. If even how I got into politics, I never wanted to be in politics. I can care less about politics when I was younger. I was MSA president. I went and got my master's in public administration to improve my masjid. like, like I had no desire to get into politics. In 2012, as MSA president, I was invited to come to uh, then President Obama's reelection campaign, and they had a rally and they had a campaign kickoff in Ohio. So I was invited, and I decided that I was gonna go, and I got suited up just like you see me now, and I was walking in. I was so happy, so excited to be in this space because I was going to meet the vice president. When I walked into that room, it was a arena full. It wasn't a full arena. It was like an auditorium full of maybe 500 people to 1,000, 500 to 700 people. I looked around that room, bro. I was the only Muslim that was in that room. The only Muslim who was in that room. And I'll tell you, and I'll admit, I wasn't civically engaged during that time. I was doing refugee resettlement work, MSA work, humanitarian work, local masjid work. That's what I was doing. But when I saw that there was no Muslim in that space, it started to get my wheels thinking like, yo, why is there no Muslim here? We have the vice president here. Like, do they just not know about it? Were they not invited? So I got a chance to meet him and take a picture with him. And when I did, I gave him a letter that spoke about my father's case. My father had been undocumented for some time because when he was a student, he stood against injustices, very similar to what we're seeing right now with people like Mahmoud Khalid. And so he became undocumented. So we had been advocating for him to get his documentation for a while, and I had given the vice president and his team my father's paperwork. Years had passed, and we were continuing to advocate, and we were working with the administration and engaging with the administration about getting my father's paperwork. 2 years later, we were able to get it, and he was no longer undocumented. And it was then that something clicked in my head where I was like, yo, engagement is the key to getting stuff passed. So I joined the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2015. I was just a volunteer doing phone banking, text banking, door knocking, trying to get the Muslim community engaged. And they give you a list to knock on doors and stuff like that. No Muslim names were on that list. I was like, yo, this is weird. So I joined the Hillary Clinton campaign. And I worked for the Hillary Clinton campaign in Ohio in 2016. And I was working with the campaign on how to engage with the Muslim community. And the lists that I was getting did not have Muslim names on the list. And what I learned and my intention of joining these campaigns was to have an understanding of how campaigns work, but also how people make decisions on campaigns.
I'm so excited to be bringing you guys this exclusive opportunity for Ansari podcast listeners. We've officially partnered up with Elif to back the next generation of Muslim founders. We're partnering up to launch the Elif Network, a global pipeline into startups for Muslim builders. So if you're a developer, an engineer, a designer, a writer, a marketer, or more, and you'd like to work for one of the fastest growing startups in the world today, then head over to elif.build/network-tap or press the link in my bio and apply for free today.
And what I learned was that the people who make it to these lists, that get invited to these rallies, that are a part of all of these circles and conversations around policy, are called high propensity voters. Voters who vote often, that vote in every election. Those are the people who get prioritized. Why? Because of campaign finance. If you have a limited amount of money, you're going to target the people who are likely to vote. So when you don't buy enough money, or when you don't have enough money, when you don't do anything, like when you are limited to the amount of money that you do have, then you're only going to target the people who actually vote often, and all you have to do is persuade them to vote for you. Versus if you're investing in a low propensity voting community, which is a community that does not vote often or may vote every 4 years during the presidential election, like ours, then you have to use more of your money and spend more of your money not only engaging with them about choosing you as the candidate, but also pushing them to actually get out.
Right, and vote in the first place.
To vote in the first place. So then I joined the Obama for America, which is Organizing for Action in Ohio. I was the state director, and we defended to pass the ACA. And then I joined Emgage. And the intention of me joining Emgage was to build an institution that focused on getting Muslims out to vote more often, so that at the end of the day, we make those lists. That's the long-term goal. The long-term goal is to ensure that Muslims are a part of the process every step of the way.
Have you found improvements in that?
Absolutely. Post 2016, we saw a huge number of Muslims who ran for office, right? In 2017, that's when I joined Emgage. We only had one Muslim elected official in Virginia. Now we have 10.
Mashallah.
Muslims are running for office. Muslims are voting. But are they voting enough? They're not. They're not really showing up to primary elections, right? Like right now, the 54,000 registered Muslims that we had, right? In past elections, they were only showing up at 5%. We have 5, 10, or not 10, sorry, 2 to 5,000 registered Muslims who are showing up to a lot of these elections. But the reality of it is that we could have so much more. We have the power to do it. In 2020, when we were advocating, in 2024, when we were advocating for Gaza, when we were fighting tooth and nail to try to get a ceasefire, when we were fighting tooth and nail to try to get conditioning aid, and we were talking with the Harris administration and the Trump administration, and we were talking, or campaigns, and we were discussing how to ask for or how to push for a ceasefire. Just call for it. Call for the ceasefire. We were leveraging everything we can. The data that we had was that in 2016, Michigan was decided by 10,700 votes. In 2020, Michigan was decided by 150,000 votes. We had over 220,000 registered Muslims in Michigan. In 2016, in Pennsylvania, the Muslim community, Trump won by 45,000 votes. In 2020, Biden won by 80,000 votes. We have over 168,000 registered Muslims in Pennsylvania. In Wisconsin, in both 2016 and 2020, they won. The winner won by 20,000 votes, and we have over 40,000 registered Muslims in Wisconsin, most of which are in the Milwaukee area. And Milwaukee was 1/3 of the total electorate. So when we're looking at, and Sami Hamdi talked about this, when we're looking at the swing states of deciding the presidential candidates, he was right in saying that the Muslim community could decide the next president. The issue with 2024 was that Donald Trump beat Harris by more than the number of Muslims who turned out to vote. And that's why the Democratic Party didn't discuss it. That's why they didn't care. I don't want to say they didn't care, but that's why they didn't view Gaza as the deciding factor of the election. It's because they saw how badly, how much Trump won by and how badly they lost. They didn't expect Bob Casey to lose his U.S. Senate seat in PA. But you know what happened in PA that most people aren't talking about? There was a Muslim woman who ran for U.S. Senate in the Green Party. And there's a video out there where the Muslim woman told Bob Casey that she's going to run against him to make sure he loses. He lost by 15,000 votes. She had 66,000 votes.
Wow.
But people aren't talking about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Was the other candidate better than Bob Casey, though?
The other candidate was Republican.
Oh, okay.
So no, it wasn't. No. So yeah, we did lose the majority. But when we talk about successes of the Muslim community and the power that we have, we underestimate ourselves.
Do you believe that these guys that are running our country, the politicians, are actually the ones running our country? So if you influence them, you'll be actually influencing?
Oh, 100%. No doubt about it.
So this whole conspiracy that there's an underlying Illuminati or group that runs the U.S. government, that's not true in the experience you've had?
No. In my experience, there have been multiple instances where I've had Muslims and allies to the Muslim community run for office and make real change on real policy. And I've even had instances where when I first joined Emgage, and I can talk about him now very openly because he just passed away a couple weeks ago. When I first joined Emgage, a congressman who was in Virginia, Congressman Jerry Connolly, when I first joined him, there were folks and leaders from the Muslim community who came to me and they said, Muhammad, we hate Jerry Connolly. He is so anti-Muslim. We have no access to him. And we fundraise for him, and he never votes the way that we need him to vote. And this was in 2017. So in 2018, we started I made the intention to really try to shift his view of the Muslim community. And I sat down with him. I sat down with him directly. I sat down with his team first, and then they opened the door for me to sit down with him. And we started to talk about why he feels the way that he feels. And you know what he said? He said, I visited a masjid for the first time in my life and I got kicked out.
What?
That's what he said. He said, I went to the masjid and I thought I was coming to speak about my campaign, and I saw my opponent there. And the way that they treated me, I decided that I just wasn't going to engage with the Muslim community because they're not a voting community anyways. So I left it at that. They'll give me money. They don't hold me accountable on my votes. So I kept it moving. That was the honest conversation that we had over dinner. Like, that is when I realized, I was like, you know what? Let me see what I can do with trying to shift the narrative with him. So I brought his team, some snacks or some lunch, and I started to befriend his team and have conversations and talk to them about like some of the issues that we were having. There were some votes that he did end up voting for our benefit, but then there were some votes where he didn't. So 2020 came, and there was a Muslim woman who ran against him, and he thought that he was going to get our endorsement because of the relationship that we started to build. So I decided to stay out of the race. I didn't endorse either one. And he was so upset. He called me and he was so disappointed in the fact that we did not endorse him, because he really felt like we started to build a relationship. And I let him know that the reason why we didn't endorse was because he did not vote in the way that we needed him to vote, and he did not put out statements specifically regarding Palestine during that time. And that's why we didn't end up endorsing him. He was not vocal enough in 2020 when there were the skirmishes that were happening in the West Bank, and there was oppression that was continuing to escalate in Gaza during that time. So we talked to him and his staff around that. In 2021, Shireen Abu Akleh was killed. And you can go on I think his Twitter's still live. You can go on his Twitter, and we worked on a statement together for Shireen Abu Akleh. And then he signed on to letter after letter around supporting and getting justice for Shireen Abu Akleh. And then he started making statements around the West Bank. And he started to talk in a way that we wanted him to talk. 2022 came, we endorsed him. We endorsed him because we started to see that change. October 7th, 2023 happened. He started talking to us about, hey, how do I frame this? I'm struggling with this. I can't say this because of this, and I can't do this. And he also sat.
Was he endorsed by AIPAC also?
No, he wasn't. He would not accept AIPAC endorsement and or funding. That was one big thing that we said that he couldn't endorse, and he could not also get anything that had to do with the Democratic Majority of Israel or any of that, or else we just were no longer going to be connected. Now, it's important to note something. He has 54,000 registered Muslims in his district. So until we came along to build that relationship, and there were Muslims who were building a relationship with him, but they just couldn't crack that nut because he was being difficult as well. So then when he started to see that we were willing to have conversations, to build that relationship, he ended up putting out statements that were beneficial for not only post October 7th, he also served on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, what happens is that other members really pay attention to how you vote and the statements you put out. So he was considered a leader on the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Wow, subhanAllah.
So being able to build those. Now, what was he exactly where we wanted him to be? No, he didn't call it a genocide. But when we asked him to condition aid, he initially said no. He couldn't put that out yet. And then we started to work with him. We said, okay, well, are you willing to condition offensive weapons? Are you willing to talk about the West Bank? Um, uh, what's happening in the West Bank? And if this is about Hamas, then why is what's happening in the West Bank happening? So like we built enough of a relationship where we could have honest conversations. But I wouldn't even have this conversation with you if he didn't pass away, because there was a confidence or a certain confidentiality that we had within our relationship where he felt comfortable enough to have those conversations with us.
Incredible, man. And I think you saw what happened with Plano in Plano, Texas, with
Yeah.
the Plano
Epic
City,
City.
Epic City. Yeah. And that was something that I thought was a wake-up call for the Dallas Muslim community, and that doesn't mean that you're rich, doesn't mean that you have a bunch of celebrities or celebrity sheikhs, that you're safe, that you're
Mm.
good. One trend that I found is that a lot of Muslims are moving to Dallas to be comfortable. They're moving to Dallas because they want to live in America without living in America.
Yeah.
And they're moving to Dallas because they want the infrastructure and all the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into building a community
Yeah.
already done for them. And they can just literally grab their furniture and sit on the couch. So and Greg Abbott, I thought this was a great wake up call for us. Showed us that that's just not the case. So money, like you're saying, we lack politics in Texas, even though the Dallas community is so strong.
Yeah, and I think that, when you're looking at politicians like those, it's also important to pinpoint why they do what they do. It was very clear that Greg Abbott saw this as an opportunity to use the Muslim community as a political scapegoat to be able to be relevant. Um, I think that when you look at the Dallas community, I know that they have good relationships with their local city council members, their supervisors, and they've been building, as you mentioned, their community for a long time. And we have some key leaders that are in Dallas where I'm sure they'll be taken care of. But the story that happened in Epic with the Epic City and what happened in Dallas is not a story that is new, right? Like there are masajid across the country, schools across the country, um, and that consistently deal with different Islamophobic policies and or legislators from supervisors and city council members who look at the Muslim community or look at the building of a mosque or the expansion of a mosque or the expansion of a school or the starting of an Islamic school as something that is a threat to the American social fabric. And one of the masajid, when I first moved to Virginia, asked for help. And when we did help, all they wanted to do was expand their parking lot. The community was just growing. And one of the Democratic supervisors said that the expansion of the parking lot changes the culture of the city. So, what he's really saying is that the expansion of the masjid, the growth of the masjid, is changing what the city looks like.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of instances where many communities are facing those things, and that's where our organization steps in. And what we do, we don't do civil rights work. We don't do that. But what we can do is we can step in and we can talk to the supervisors and we can advocate and we can lobby for the passage of those zoning
Oh,
laws.
you lobby,
Yeah,
like
we
with
lobby
money.
100%.
Emgage?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, yeah.
didn't know
We're
that.
a lobbyist. We're not a lobbyist organization, but we do lobby. We do advocate. So we're not only a nonprofit, we also are a C4 or an issue advocacy organization where we're always in Congress, but we also have a PAC and we have a super PAC. So not only do
What?
we,
I didn't know
yeah,
this. So what, how can someone help you guys? And you said you guys aren't just Democrat Party, you're both
no,
Democrat and
we're both.
Republican.
Right.
Yeah, you lobby
So
both.
absolutely. So for example, I'll give you examples of some of the races that we've invested in. For example, Summer Lee, we invested in this past 2024 election, who's the congresswoman We invested a little over $100,000 into her race to make sure that we defended her position, and APAC dumped $4 million. So we had other coalition partners who were also a part of it, like the Working Families Party and others who were a part of that. We also invested in Jamal Bowman, and we also invested in Cori Bush.
And let's say one of these candidates actually wins. You guys would then send them someone to personnel from Emgage to keep a tab on them?
We wouldn't send it over to them. We would just keep a tab. We would support them any way that we can. One of the biggest reasons why we endorsed them was to essentially because we agreed on the policies that we agreed to during our endorsement process. So we'll talk to them about the issue in Sudan. We'll talk to them about Kashmir. We'll talk to them about the Uyghurs in China. We'll talk to them about Palestine and Gaza and where our position is on there, and they would agree to it.
You told me that 2024 was our best year politically, even though we were in complete frantic state spiritually and emotionally. What do you mean by it was our best year politically in America?
It was our best year politically in America. The example of Bob Casey losing and the Muslim woman who ran for U.S. Senate. That's one example. That, to me, she ran on Gaza. She ran on Gaza to hold him accountable. Whether I agree with her or not on strategy, that is a win. Latifah Simon, the addition of Latifah Simon as a U.S. Congresswoman who is a Muslim woman, that was added on. We now have 4 Muslim congresspeople.
Really?
Yeah. We have Andre Carson, we have Ilhan Omar, we have Rashida Tlaib, and we have Latifah Simon. So we have 4. But also, whether I agree with it or not, there was the launch of Abandon Biden. It's not a matter of whether I agree with it or not. It launched, and it was important. It was powerful. The launch of Abandon Biden then came Uncommitted. For those people who could not say that they wanted to abandon Biden, Uncommitted was born. And when Uncommitted was born, it was this articulation that, hey, we are going to maintain Uncommitted until we're able to get X, Y, and Z.
Whoa, but you said that we should have. You guys endorsed Harris, though. So how's
We
that a
endorsed
victory?
Uncommitted first.
Oh.
We did not. We were Uncommitted until after the DNC, which was in September. So we supported the Uncommitted movement. We weren't leads. We weren't any of that. We were a national partner of Uncommitted. So we supported that Uncommitted piece. And again, it doesn't matter if you agree with the Uncommitted movement or not. It was a win. And there are some people who will say, oh, but the drop of Biden was not because of Gaza. Some people will try to say that and articulate that. I actually disagree.
Yeah.
I actually believe that without Abandon Biden, without Uncommitted, without the fracturing of the party, a bad debate performance would have never, ever forced a presidential candidate to drop.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, he has dementia like crazy. You see the reports coming out now.
I plead fifth on that, but I mean, like it's
Yo, you
it's
saw
an acknowledgement.
that you saw the guy that was U.S. Secretary of Press or Press Secretary,
Matthew Miller,
Matthew
who
Miller,
came out now
came out now.
and said, yeah, and you know,
For people who don't know, the guy
yeah.
that slimy looking dude, astaghfirullah, that was whatever the press secretary for Biden. Every time you asked him about Gaza, he would give you some slimy answer with a sneaky little smile. I hated the way
Everyone hated it. Everyone shared it.
Oh my
And
god.
you know what it reminded me of?
Huh.
You know what it reminded me of? And it's not just him, by the way. It's not just Matthew Miller.
Right.
It's also when you're looking at people like Candace Owens, and you're looking at Tucker Carlson, and you're looking at all these people who were pro-Israel and now are so pro-Gaza.
No, but Matt Miller, you can't put Candace Owens in the same.
I'm not saying they're the same.
Okay.
I'm saying that what they reminded me of is a story that I just recently learned about with the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Nice.
where after the Battle of Uhud, he saw Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu's brother. And he said, I want you to send a message to your brother. This is after the Battle of Uhud. This is after Hamza radiallahu anhu was killed, after members of the Muslim community were killed. his friends, his family, his people were killed. He said, I want you to send a message to your brother, and I want you to tell him that he's too smart not to believe in what I'm saying. To me, what we're seeing with Candace and Matthew Miller and all that, they're too smart not to believe in truth.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing now is that the world is too smart to believe what Zionism is putting out there.
Because it's really bad, man.
It is really bad.
Like, at this point, it's
But-
really bad.
But it was always really bad.
Yeah, you're right.
It was always really bad. And what we're seeing now is this shift that from 2024, we're owning that narrative. We won the narrative. It wasn't a matter of winning the election. Like, whether I agree with him or not, Butch Ware, who was the vice presidential candidate for the Green Party.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of whether I agree with him. I love that brother for what he did. I know how hard it is to run for office.
Who now is running for governor of
Governor.
California. Shout out to
Which
Butch.
I think
love
was
that
a great
guy.
thing,
Yeah, he's
which
been
is
winning.
which is amazing. But
He was
on the
supposed to
campaign
visit me
trail-
in Dallas and then canceled his trip. Just trying to say.
but on the campaign trail, I disagreed with how he handled a lot of things. I did.
You disagreed. Yeah.
I disagreed with it. Yeah, because a lot of where I disagreed is only on the strategy. That's it. But what he was trying to do, what he accomplished, was important for the movement. And where I disagreed was more so the strategy around what it looks like to build a third party. That's what I disagreed with.
Mm.
I disagreed that they could attain 5% based on the strategy that they were using, which is perfectly fine. Again,
What do you think the strategy for building a third party is then?
I do think that the strategy, yeah, you do have to get the 5% every 4 years, but I do think that you can start to invest locally. There are many races that you can invest in and win, where we're having conversations. One of the things that I'm actually proud of him doing is actually running for governor, because running at the state level and running at the local level will allow for space to build that infrastructure and build that power. You're not going to build infrastructure running nationally. It's not going to happen. And in order for you to win in campaigns, you do have to have canvas launches. You do have to make calls. You do have to send out text messages. You do have to actually get out in community and do that mundane, tough grunt work.
Right.
And we just didn't see that.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
was the
why
main
we didn't see
criticism.
that pathway to victory.
Right.
Their victory was 5%, but we didn't see that. And even if you take a look at like what they built in even 2016 when they ran versus 2024, because they didn't run in 2020. But if you take a look at what they had in 2016, they were endorsing and uplifting the congressional candidates that were running. You didn't see that this time around. So I just didn't agree with the approach to how they were trying to build that power. I do feel like they were taking advantage of the moment, which is great. Like I understand politics enough to see that, look, they had this momentum that they wanted to take advantage of, right? Like, and that's okay. I think that's amazing. You did what you did, regardless of if I agree or not, they were successful. Why? Because they were a part of the narrative. And we even had a sister in the Independent Party who was the vice president for Cornell West, another Muslim woman. Like, since when have Muslims ever been that ingrained in every party? We saw the imams, again, whether you agree or not, we saw the imams on stage at the GOP rally.
I love
Yeah,
it. I loved it.
but that's the thing. The reality of it is that it connected with people. People were excited to see themselves in a stage that they traditionally would not be a part of. How can I say that's bad? Right?
Yeah,
And in the
that's
Democratic Party, people do disagreed with Emgage's decision. However, that's a part of the narrative. And I'll tell you, there were key people that were in the Democratic Party who were Muslim, who were so important through the process, that were hired onto the campaign, that opened certain doors that we otherwise could not have opened, where we could not have direct discussions with the president during that time. if it wasn't for those people that were in the administration. And so when we're looking at what success looks like, everyone looks at success differently. But as a collective, any other minority group would have looked at what we achieved and said that is our dream to achieve. Any other minority group. But the difficulty with our community in that moment, and even today, is that it's hard for us to acknowledge that while simultaneously seeing the pain of our brothers and sisters.
I mean, the pain of our brothers and sisters are the reason why we're seeing that success, and that's the
100%.
sad part.
100%.
Yeah.
And and I can tell you that I know that our team wakes up every day figuring out what lever can we utilize? What other way can we move the needle closer to having this discussion? The difficulty now is that we don't have that same access
Yeah.
to
Let
be
me
able
ask
to
you
weigh.
this about your work with Emgage.
Mhm.
When you guys are looking for the next 20 years, it's really hard. We're living in a time that they say that some eras in human history, centuries move like decades, and others, decades move like centuries. And I believe we live in a time where a decade moves like a century. We're living in a time where 10 to 20 years from now, we don't know what's going on. Is China going to be number one? Is Russia? Is Saudi
Mhm.
Arabia?
Mhm.
Who's going
Mhm.
to be number one? America? How is Mgage preparing for Muslim political engagement for the next 20 years in the future? How are you guys looking ahead?
The way that we're looking ahead is we're focused, of course, on the election next year, in 2026. But I think the most important thing, and this is really a key to our work, is that we don't measure our success by elections. Like election day to election day, we've lost, we've won. It's not measured by elections. It's measured by what you do in between that time. It's every door that we knock. It's every conversation that we have, every community event that we have. The only thing that can prepare us, the only thing that can prepare us for 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or even 20 years from now is our sense of community and the bond that we have with our community. And so Mgage is investing in being in community. There are times where we know we were the cause of pain because of our decisions that we've made. I will never sit here and say that everything we've done is right. Um, but we also know that there are times where our community has been able to count on us to do the right thing, and we've done it. And so we're looking to invest in ways that we can not only educate our community, but also serve our community. There's a lot of masajid that need help with zoning laws. There's a lot of community members in schools that need help with potentially getting vouchers. There's a lot of Islamophobia that's happening.
Have you guys helped Epic City at all?
We're looking into it. We're looking into it. I know we're having some conversations about how we can be most helpful. Now, it's important for us to also note that like we don't do civil rights cases, so we don't do law. So we don't litigate. We don't do anything like that. We have institutions like CARE and others who do that. But when it comes down to actually lobbying and and building political power and building political relationships, that is something that we can help not just Epic but any masjid in America potentially build and inshallah invest in. So we're here as a service to our community. We're not here for ourselves. I know a lot of people sometimes assume that like, oh, you guys are in DC, so you're doing it for your benefit. No, not a single member of our team has ever expressed, hey, I want to advance my career. Every single member of our team comes into work every day and just grinds on figures out ways for us to serve our community. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, just like anything else.
Yeah.
Um, but that's what we do.
Mohamed Gula, that's all the questions that I have for you personally. Do you have any final thoughts before we head off, bro?
I think my final thought is really um, we have to understand that if we want real change, like real change, the Muslim community is not outnumbered. We have the resources. We have the money. We have the votes. We have the policies. We're simply out organized. Saad talked about one of the things that he talked about that was a fair point was that we have the numbers, but we each have our own issues that we're advocating for, and we're not going to give up on our own personal issues. My argument is that although we're diverse, our diversity can either be a superpower or a crutch, because our collective number, our collective resources, our collective turning it into one institution,
That'd be
dude,
crazy.
crazy.
But it would be slow, and it would be, yeah, I like that we have a diverse
It
number
would
of
be
things
slow
that
as
we're doing.
crazy.
It'd be slow.
It would be slow.
Muslims love bureaucracy. They
They do.
love it.
They do.
They love telling you to talk to my secretary. They
They
love
do.
it. You know,
They do. I don't have one of those yet.
well, people in general like that,
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
Muslims. Mohamed Gula, political strategist, national organizing director at Emgage, and the co-founder of Virginia Muslim Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on the Ansari podcast, brother.
Thank you, bro.
And thank you guys for listening to the Ansari podcast. Hey, Salam, guys. We're trying to build more studios, hire more people, and create more shows that you guys will love and enjoy. If you guys want to invest in us, then go on patreon.com/Ansari podcast and support us today.